Give me what to say, let me hear you clearly define what I am to do. Let every word penetrate the heart. Let what is said lead them running to your arm. Use me, Lord. Use me, Lord.
I'm going to start at Genesis 5:19 and 20, King James Version. And Joseph said unto them, fear not, for I am in the place of God. But as for you, because of you, but as for you, you thought evil against me. But, now I say that, but God. Nobody but God. I can start right here, forget about all the rest of it. Nobody but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, it is in this day, to save merged people alive. My topic is, if you probably already guessed, but God. But God. And there's a question mark there because it's a question. It's a question. But God. Let me say how I arrived at this decision, because this is a blessing. Because y'all know we have squad meetings. And we were sitting around at the squad meeting. Sister Jackie, I want to call her Mother Jackie, but I won't. Charlotte, my wife, and Ella Holsey. And at our meeting, we began to give little testimonies. We get together with squad meetings, and squad meetings are a way for us to get to know each other personally and to come together and to pray and talk. And as we got together, Sister Jackie began to talk about, but God. And we began to give our little but God testimonies. We began to say, if this hadn't happened, but God, if I hadn't been over here, and if I'd have stayed here, but God. And we began to talk about, but God. The situations I could have been in, the things that could have happened, the family members that are saved, but God. But God, oh, that it touched me. And I told Jack, I say, that'll preach. That'll preach. But God. Let's go to the NIV version, Genesis 50:19 and 20. The NIV version says, but Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. I am in the place of God. You intended to harm me, but God intended for good to accomplish what is now being done, the savings of many lives. Here we have a statement that explains some of life's situations and says what God is in all situations to his children. The word but, I say it again, the word but redirects the direction of a past incident, action, and mistakes, or in the case points to the corrective ability of God to work the bad for his divine purpose and benefit of his children. But his ability to turn things around. His ability that when you're out there struggling and he reaches hand down and take that struggle and encourage you and make it come out good. The moment when you're about to get in an accident and all of a sudden you close your eyes and you look around and you say, wonder how did that car miss me? I walked into the office to apply for a job and I had no experience. I didn't know what I was going to do. But when I walked away, I had a smile on my face. When I walked away, I had a job. God redirected my path for his glory. Not me. There's no such thing as luck. I believe in God. God redirected. God redirected it. It says, as we know the story of Joseph, he has everything. As we know the story of Joseph, everyone had a but. Everyone in the story of Joseph had a but, a direction they wanted to go. The direction is not always correct, but it is a desired path. His brothers wanted him dead, but feared daddy couldn't survive the news and let him live. Plaintiff, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian whose wife had a plan for Joseph. But it never got out of the planning stages. Her sin was mental and a lustful error. Joseph resisted temptation, went to jail after freeing from her lust amid false accusations. But jail was a great reward towards his final destination. Isn't that odd? Jail was a greater reward. How can you be punished? How can you be in prison and do better? How can you go to jail and somebody realize that you're something different? You're special. Maybe you shouldn't be here, but I'm going to take care of you. But God. Joseph. In jail, Joseph acknowledged his dependence on God by being an interpreter of dreams, proving that he was more than a mere dreamer. He knew to return good for evil. He understood that men cause evil, but God turns their actions into good works. Can you imagine being patient in jail? Can you imagine being accused of all of these things and you're looking at the accuser and he's telling you, well, just say anything. Just stand up for yourself. But because you don't want to embarrass him or his wife, you sit there in silence. You sit there because of respect for. How many of you could do that? How many of you could sit there in silence and suffer and understand that God has the upper hand? Understand that God is going to win the battle. Understand that he's the ultimate coach. He's the ultimate team player. You're going to get to the Super Bowl. God is the ultimate. God. But God. God doesn't just redeem us for himself. He redeems our souls and our lives for his divine purpose. Joseph knew and declared this. He was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, taken from everything he knew and loved, separated from his family for decades, wrongly accused, despite his honesty and hard work, integrity, wrongly imprisoned, and left in a prison despite his hard work and innocence. Can you imagine that? You know what? There's a saying that everybody in prison say they're innocent. You ever heard that? Yes, here was a man who said, I'm innocent, and it was true. Here's a man who had to suffer and wait for his time. Go through punishment, trials, and tribulation. Do we have that patience? Do we have the confidence in God to wait to suffer. Now, I can say I've acquired that in my old age, but as a young man, I didn't have it. I thought about, I was smart enough to do anything. I could figure it out. Y'all don't look at me like that. Y'all were like that too. You could figure it out. I'm going through a situation now, and it's not a hard situation. It's something that I want. I'm a ham operator. And so I'm trying to put up this station. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. And everything keeps going wrong. So I called my buddy today, and I told him, I said, you know what? When God is ready, it'll get done. When God's ready, it'll get done. I did all I can do, and I won't do no more. I can't do no more. I refuse to do anything until it's time. And when it's time, he'll let me know. When it's time, everything will fall into place. Because right now, I'm irritated. I'm upset at the weather. Lord, not you. They talking about snow Friday. I'm upset about a lot of things. And none of them have to do with God. None of them has to do with the work of my family. It's all about my lousy pleasure. Is that what we do? Yet, through all of this, Joseph said to his brother, without hard feelings, without anger, without revenge, you intend to harm me, but God intended for good. You sold me. You stuck me in a pit. The slaves got me and sold me again. I had a great job for a while. I was prospering for a while until the woman looked on me and had lust in her heart. I'm back in prison. But I understand there's a God. I understand that, and while I'm in prison, I'm doing good. I'm not bad-mouthing people. I'm not spitting venom. I'm trying to do what I do best, and what I do best is talk to God and see things and interpret dreams. That's what I'm doing. Now, I told this one man, you're going to get out, but you're done for. And I told the other guy, when you get out and you prosper, you remember me. Remember me. There was a statement in 2 Samuel 14:14. It says, like water spilled on the ground, which cannot be covered, so we must die. But God does not take away alive. Instead, he devises ways so that a vanished person may not remain estranged from him, but may be reconciled. God don't throw things away. God just don't disregard things. We walk away. God don't walk away. God is looking to redeem every one of us. But God brings hope when we can't see a way through. When there's no light at the end of the tunnel. When there's total darkness. When our heads are buried in the sand. When we don't know where to go, what to do, what to say, God sees us through. But God means ashes. But God means ashes. Now listen to this. But God means ashes, and the grave are at the end of the story. The grave is not the end of our story. We've got something better. We've got our afterlife. We've got eternity. David said, one thing I desire is that I may dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'm looking forward to dwelling. I'm looking forward to a place in heaven. But God, says God, not circumstances, man, Satan, nor any weapon formed against us gets the last lick, wound, or word. Nobody has the last word. Nobody has the last anything but God. This is an example, a prime example, that God, no matter what the circumstances, controls in it. Y'all read Revelation. You know he controls. Pastor C just got through the whole thing on Revelation. God controls in it. From beginning to end, he told Jeremiah, I saw you, I looked at you, I formulated everything before you was even conceived. Now do what I tell you. I've got this thing figured out. Let's go to Genesis real quick. Genesis 8, 1 through 4. And God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him on the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters are washed, assuaged. Next one. The fountains also of the deep, the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained. Next. And the waters returned from the earth continually after the end of the 150 days, the water was abated. 4. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. And God remembered. God remembered. But God remembered. God remembered all that he had promised. God remembered. God tells of the corruption. In Genesis, the first way God tells of the corruption, the circumstance behind it, how all mankind was evil. They did what was right in their own eyes, but God looked down and saw one righteous man in his family. And he told him, he says, I want y'all to build me an ark. And I want you to put the animals in 2 by 2. And it started to rain, and God closed the ark. And for 150 days, they floated. I'd have been seasick for 150 days. For 150 days on the water. And guess what? God remembered. He remembered his covenant. He remembered his promise. God remembered. I want to get over here to this last one real quick. This is the one I want to. Matthew 19, 24, 25. And again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and asked, who can be saved? 26. Oh. And Jesus looked at him and said, with man, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. All things are possible. Here we read and we see Peter was called to be a visit by a Gentile. And this is odd because Cornelius was a centurion in the army. Peter was breaking a code. The Jews didn't associate with Gentiles. There was no association whatsoever. So Peter, after having a call from God, decided, well, I'm going to go. Peter had a dream about the blanket and the food. And God told him, said, everything that I make is safe and clean. So Peter, going down to see Cornelius, when he walked in, because God sent him, he realized that all of these people were Gentiles. Now, I'm going against the norm. I'm going against the crowd. I'm going against the folks. I'm going against the Jews. I'm going against a lot of things. I'm going against the norm. But guess what? I'm going because God spoke to me. I'm going because God sent me. I'm not just going with the crowd because the crowd is together, the crowd is right. I'm not going on emotions. I'm not going because of all of them. I'm going because God sent me. God told me to go over here. God told me to minister. He said, all I know is that the Spirit said, I sent them. The Spirit said, Paul, I'm sending these folks to you. God sent them. God has showed me that I should not call anyone impure because Peter understood about people. Peter understood that division was about people, not food. See, he first thought he could go eat some pig feet. It was okay. Because when God gives us vision, sometimes they're twofold. Sometimes they have different meanings. And we have to be patient to understand what they mean. We all don't have the gifts, Pastor. See, some people have to figure it out. But when he first got it, he thought, well, you know what? It's okay if I go over and eat some pork with these folks. It's all right. But later on, he began to realize that all people, not just the Gentiles, all people are made by God and are pure. I can mingle with all people. I don't have to worry about red, white, blue, Muslim, Gentiles. I can mingle. The word is for all people. Now, we got to get over that. It's just not for one set. When Alexander the Great, I believe, went through Europe, during his conquest of Europe, he tore down all of the black Jesuses, all of the black Marys, and replaced them with images, white images. A lot of people don't realize this. Poland right now is the only country that worships a black Jesus and a black Mary. See, Alexander had me in mind. He didn't have God in mind. He didn't have the Spirit of God. He had, I want to conquer the known world. And he destroyed everything that was biblical because it don't look like me. Don't be surprised. The same thing is going on days. People are destroying everything biblical and denying everything biblical because it don't line with their color, it don't line with their philosophy, it don't line with their way of thinking, it don't line with nothing. And America is being drawn back into the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. They're being drawn back into the days of before the story, the flood. We're being drawn back. And if we don't say, but God, if we don't stand up and be an example, then the world's in trouble. God's going to come quicker than we think it is. We've got to say everything is all right. And when things go right, we're going to have to start looking to God. With God, all things, let me say it again. With God, all things, not just one, not just two, not just three, all things are possible. I could sit here and tell you about the goodness and the things he's done to me, and you could sit here and tell me. Because sometimes they are so subtle, we don't recognize it. And sometimes they are major. But with God, these verses tell us that our circumstances do not get the last word. The enemy does not get the last word. Death and disease do not get the last word, because there is always a but God. Thank you. I love you.
Give me what to say. Let me hear you.
Thank you for listening. If this teaching has been a blessing to you and you'd like to partner with our ministry to share the message of Jesus Christ, please visit our website at www.hmclive.org and click the donate button. If you're in our area, we invite you to join us at 4317 Lippincott Boulevard, Burton, Michigan, 48519. Harris Memorial Church of God in Christ, teaching the truth and showing the love.
Use me, Lord.